right? Okay.
Yes, you can start.
Okay, so I hope yesterday you people were able to understand like what Dart is and what are few of the concepts regarding object-oriented approach in Dart. Okay. So today we are going to discuss like how to model your data and how to fetch your data from the internet or from any remote API which you want to access, which you want to consume inside your application. So for doing that, let me just project my screen. Okay. Just a minute, just a minute. Okay, I think my screen is visible now. Okay, thank you so much for the response. Okay, so we are going to discuss like how internet fetching data work, like fetching data from the internet works. Okay, so whenever you use an application, that application actually communicates with data which is being stored on some remote server. Okay, and you communicate between your device and with that remote server. You need a particular worker between yourself, right? So yeah, absolutely. So that particular component which just connects servers from the user request on a particular device, that thing is called API. Okay, so it's an interface which acts between the user app, which means the device on the user which it's using, and the server where your data is stored. Okay, so to fetch that particular type of data, there is an API involved. Okay, so when you visit a restaurant, you need to order something. Okay, so you need to actually connect with the chef because he will be the one who will be creating dishes for you, right? So you cannot directly communicate to that, and you're not even allowed to enter inside the kitchen. Okay, so that thing should be conveyed with some medium, with some interface. So in the case of restaurant, it should be the waiter who will come and take your orders, and those orders will be shown to the chefs, and the chefs will create or cook the desired food you want. Okay. So in our case, the waiter, the person who takes up the orders, he's the API. Okay. So you can imagine it like that. Yeah, that's like the most common example. Okay. So that's what API is, and now API has some written documentation to it. So whenever you go and see, even if you are experimenting with Flutter and looking at the documentation of Dart, you might have seen API word appearing here and there. Okay. So API technically has its own documentation, which allows you to, to get the set of rules, to get the syntax, to get the, the methods which you want to use. So API documentation contains all these kind of things. Okay. So the most format type of API, API format, like how do you see, how do you visualize API? So if I say commonly today, most of the API you see and go through, they come in a format called JSON, or some people even use XML format. Okay, so JSON and XML, these are two common formats right now in the world, which allows you to experiment with the JSON objects which you receive. Okay, so what is an object? An object is a particular component inside the data pool which you are calling up from using that API. Okay, so so there's this famous API whenever people are working when they want to experiment. So here it's an REST API. It's called Json Placeholder, which allows you to experiment and just try out things when it comes to implementation of any API. So if you're able to implement this, most of the API work on the same way, right? Cool. So here it's guide like how to use it. So if you want to get a resource, then you should actually try this. You have this particular URL. Let me just copy this and open it up in new page. Okay. So you can see this particular thing is called an object. Okay. And it has these key value pairs. Okay. These whenever you see key value pairs, you might be reminded of Python dictionaries or maps, right? So you have an association between left and right side. Okay, key and value pairs. Okay, so I have user ID, and you can see the type of user ID. And in case of title, I have this wrapped up inside these double quotes. So it's pretty clear to me that it's a string. Okay, and in this case, I don't have any double quote. So it's pretty clear to me that it's a number. Okay, similarly, like in this case, so we are able to identify by looking that we are dealing with, in this case, especially with integers and strings. Okay, so I can access this URL. I can access this object by accessing to this URL, right? And this URL was present inside this guide. So if I want to get or fetch a resource, then I have this. So you might be, if someone has worked with JavaScript, they are aware about promises, right? So promises just allow you to, to create a functionality. Like let's say you want some other function to be returning a value before you execute this particular function. Okay. How can I explain it in a better way? You can only allow a user to sign up only when he has uploaded his picture onto our servers. Okay. So when you expect someone to log in to create his or her account, okay. So in that case, he needs to upload his profile picture. So we have a particular check that we will only allow this user to the next steps only when he uploads his picture. Okay. So now the upload speed entirely depends upon the user's phone or his network or his internet bandwidth. So we cannot proceed with just some function got executed and then we proceed next. We have to make sure that yes, his image or his profile picture got stored onto a database or onto a server. Okay. So for that part, we have to actually put a check, like if it's returning something like when you post a request, you get some particular code, let's say OK200. So when you get that back, so 200 actually allows us to know like, yeah, our query got successful and we were able to complete it successfully. Okay. So if I get a written query, a written code 200, then only I'll be, allowing further functions to get executed. So likewise, when you have one function depending on other function, like you cannot move without this function get executed. So in that case, you need to have these promises. Okay, so promises allows us to do that, right? So this basically happens when we are dealing with languages which are single threaded. Okay, and it does not mean that you are bound to use something which does not support multi-threading, right? So every language has its own to run things parallelly. Okay. So one similar example is JavaScript promises, and in case of Flutter, we have .then functions as well, and we also have async and await. So like the name suggests, async means asynchronous, and await technically means like we want this thing to wait until the other function gets executed or this function gets to a particular point where we want to proceed next. Okay. So yeah, so this is what technically a response looks like. okay, an object. Okay, this is what we are being returned. So if I just remove this one, this is technically returning me the first post. Okay, if I remove this one and enter, you can see now I'm able to access these many data objects. Okay, and the list will go on. So like here I have user ID 10, ID 95, and I have till 100. Okay, let's see what extra things we have. So if I want to list all the resources, then like I removed that slash, so it will be returning to me all the resources. Okay, and the output will look something like this, like ID, title, user ID, right? And if you want to create a resource, then we have this. We have to just go over to the redirection, and the method will be post. So there are multiple, methods to get data and to push data. So to push data, we have post method, and to get a data, we have get method. Okay, and we have some headers. So headers just allow us to know like which kind of content we are dealing with. So in this case, we have application slash JSON, which is like one of the most famous format to work, and charset, which allows us to know like which character set we are using. Some people use UTF-8, some people use Unicode. So there are different charset based upon the country. Because let's say if you are in an Urdu speaking country, then and you have some different symbols which are not included in UTF-8, or a particular Unicode one, or a new or something new which has been added, and they have their own character set. So for that they have this option, right? Okay, then we have this dot then response, and we'll just deal with this in the later course. And if you want to update in resource, then you have a method called put. Put just allows you to update something existing onto our servers. Okay, and yeah, again the same character set, and then we are consoling it, or like logging it onto into our console. Likewise, and we have a patch method, and deleting, filtering, listing. So likewise, and we have these much routes available. I can go to a post comments, I can go to album photos, I can go to dos, I can go to these much posts. So these are all the endpoints I am being provided by this particular JSON placeholder API. Okay, cool. So now we'll come back to our Dart pad. Okay. So now I want to experiment with that particular object, and I want to print that object in case of Dart. Those all examples were uh, absolutely clear, and I want them to be implemented now in Dart. Okay. So before we proceed any further, we need to have a particular library, a particular import to happen while we proceed further. So that thing is, we need to import something called Dart convert. Okay. So Dart convert is a library which allows us to get a particular JSON object and convert it into a consumable JSON, like a consumable thing. Okay. So it just what it will do is, if we have a string, right? So we'll be entering an object in form of a string. Okay, and then we want this to be fetched in form of JSON. So we want that entire thing to be decoded into a JSON. So that decode thing is present inside this library. Cool. So first of all, my screen is visible to all, and I expect my font size is off as well. So if someone can just give me a thumbs up. Okay. So like every Dart program, I write a main function. I go inside the main function. Now I will write my JSON object. Okay. So let me write my raw JSON object. So like we saw it here, if I just, so you can see we have these many fields: a user ID, an ID, a title, and a body. So we have four fields right here, and against them we have all the values. Okay, cool. So I will come right here, and likewise I'll create my own JSON object. Okay, and let's say I'll write URL. and let the URL be like HTTPS. Okay, and this is my one field done. Now I'll write my second field, and let's say I want here to be ID. Okay, and let the ID be 2. Okay, now I will just put all of this inside it as a string. Okay, then we'll be decoding it in form of a JSON. Okay, cool. Now that's how I get my data. I get my data in form of these. Like you can see here also we have this thing called stringify, right? So yeah, when you have a JSON, you're just stringifying everything, and that it's being decoded into something on the server side code. Okay, cool. Now, where are we? Yeah, here. Okay. Now I want to parse this JSON. Now, technically, I'm creating a particular simulation kind of thing that this is the response you are getting. This is exactly a data which you are getting from that particular API. Like we got it here, right, from this URL. And now I'm just storing this entire object inside this variable raw JSON, and I'm getting it in string format. Now I'm going to decode it like I will decode every time whenever I get it. Okay. So I will just create another variable, and I will write it parsed JSON. So JSON parsing is technically what I'll be doing here. I'll be parsing my data from this stringified object. Okay. And that parsing will technically happen with a function with a method called decode, and it's called JSON dot decode. So you can see decode will take a string source. Okay. So we have our string source, which is raw JSON. Okay, I will paste it here. Cool. Okay. Now this entire thing has been converted into a pure JSON object. Okay. Now, like when we work with a map kind of scenario, so map or a dictionary. So when we work in that kind of scenario, we have two things to deal with. Okay. First one is key pair values and the index in which they are present. Okay. So if I want to print this URL, so how I will print it, right? I will type print. I will type parsed JSON, and then I will put these square brackets. Okay, and I will type here URL. Okay, so now if I hit just remove this. Yeah. Now if I hit run, so I'll be shown this https.example.com. Okay, so you can see that's how we print. Okay, now I will also print pass JSON, and this time I'll pass ID. Okay, and I'll run it. So now I'll get the ID. Okay, so now there's something happening here. Okay, yesterday we discussed types in Dart. So there are multiple types. There are string, there are numbers, and there are booleans. Okay, so we have different types. But what's happening here is I'm getting this entire data as a string. Okay, and I'm decoding it right now. So, but I'm not very sure like what kind of data it is, since it is just any string, right? It's any string. It can be anything. But if it's coming in JSON format, then I'm able to decode it. But I'm not sure like what kind of decoding, what kind of data type I'll be getting. So to just to remove that kind of confusion, I will be creating something called a model class. Okay, So I'll be creating a model class. So model class is a class, okay, which will just take up the data which you have, okay, and it will be having a constructor which will allow you to do create an instance of itself, okay, and we'll be having a parse JSON objects inside it, and we'll be defining the data type itself, okay. So if it's not very clear, don't sweat it. We'll create a model class right now. Okay. So let's create a class. Let's call it post model. Now I have two things here. First is my URL and second is my ID. So I'm pretty sure that URL will always be in a string format. Okay. And ID will always be in an integer format. Okay. Cool. Oh, sorry. I will have to go. Okay. So now we have our main function and we have post model class. Now, yesterday we discussed like why we should create constructors so that we need not to write with that much code redundancy. So I'll just straight away create a constructor. So a constructor is a function with the same name as the class. Okay. And I will write here this dot URL, this dot ID. Okay. So is this a little bit clear to everyone? Like what we are doing here? Okay. So we have a main function. We have this string which contains object, and then we are decoding this string object using this JSON decode. Okay, and we get this parse JSON. Okay, and when I want to read, I'll write parse JSON URL. So you can see I have to write it again and again. This parse JSON thing I'm writing again and again. Don't worry, we'll uh, create a better way for this as well. So right now I have a class ready, and now I want to create an object or an instance of class. Okay, so I will name it var data model, or let's say my model. Okay, and my model will contain a new post model. Okay, now what are the insertions I have to do inside these round brackets, the arguments which I have to pass? So I'll be passing what's inside my constructor. So I'll be passing URL first. So for URL, I have this written right here. I'll just copy this. Okay. Similarly, I will paste it for ID. Okay. Okay. And I will just add a semicolon here. Cool. So now everything seems to work fine. Everything is in place. Now I want to print this data model. So I will type print my model. Okay. So if I'll print this, what will happen? What do you guys expect? Like what will be printed? Anyone? Okay, I'll increase the font size. Okay. I hope it's fine now. Yeah, exactly. We'll be returned a instance of class. Okay. And we don't want it. We actually want the data. We want the properties present inside the class. So if I'll run this, I'm getting instance of post model. So to access its inner properties, I'll have to use something called Just yeah, I want to access the ID, then I'll access ID. And if I want to access my URL, then I will access my URL. Yeah, so now you can see I have my ID, second one, and I have my URL, this last one. Okay. Now, Amanpreet, string method is not required when you are pretty sure what kind of data type it is. Okay. So in my case, you know that print function will print both the things, right? It will also print integers. It will also print strings. So we have explicitly defined that we have a string data, and we have also defined like we have an integer data. Okay. So we don't need a string method for that. But if you want, you can absolutely add it here to string and it will work just fine, but this time it will return a string. So you won't see any changes happening as such. But now this number is no longer a number, it's now a string. Okay, cool. Okay, sorry. Okay, now now we have a post, right? Now we want to actually understand like how this API works. So in this case, what we did is we created our local object. We store it inside a variable. Okay. Now I want this to work with respect to fetching data from internet. Okay. So what shall I do? So there's one more thing like we have to take care about. So we create model instances, right? So after getting model instances, we also have to get the data. Okay. Just a minute. Yeah. Okay, so you can see here we are writing parse JSON, this entire thing, and here we are writing my model.id.url. But this is a very hefty task to write this thing again and again, right? So I want to do something like what we're doing here is we are passing two parameters. Okay, what I technically want to do is I want to pass my entire JSON data, whichever what I receive, I want it to be entirely present here. So I should be able to do something like this. Okay, if I am able to do this, then I will be very much happy because now I don't have to write this again and again. Okay, so to do that, we are going to create a method inside our post model, and we will create this something like post model dot. Now I want this data. Now here post model, instead of containing these two, what to say, properties, I want the entire JSON object, like multiple files, multiple JSON objects to be present inside it. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll create a post model and I'll name it from JSON. Okay. Now, like I mentioned previously, I want this in format something. Okay. I want it something like this, right? So I want to pass JSON entirely inside this, and I'll be able to consume it fully. But I don't want to lose this functionality as well. Okay. I want to keep this as well. And I also want to do this as well. So that's why we're creating this another method inside our model class. Am I making myself clear here why we are doing this? Okay. So now this JSON from JSON method will contain our parse JSON. And this will be a method, obviously. And now I will type here URL equals to pass JSON Are we good as of now? Are you guys able to understand like what I did here? Okay, good. So I created this post model class and then I assigned the properties to it. And I have two properties. One is URL, second is ID. And I created the constructor, which allows me to create a new instance like this. Also, I added one more method. It's called from JSON, which allows me, which gives me a functionality and independence to actually pass the entire JSON object. Okay. So now I have two ways, and all these two ways, all the two ways are very, very helpful for me. Okay. Cool. Now we will absolutely now we will try to actually do this. Okay. Cool. All right. So now we want this entire thing to be subjected inside our application, like a Flutter application. Okay. So let's just fire up our Flutter application. I will just project my screen. Okay. Okay. I hope my full screen is visible now. Okay. So we'll go back and open up our emulator, and we'll open up our terminal. Oh, VS Code. Okay. Now I will create a new Flutter project, and I will keep it on desktop. I will create a new folder. I will type it here, drill apps, go inside. Now I will remove this entire. Okay, so we are absolutely clear like what stateless and stateful widgets are, right? So okay, now we're good. Let's run this application. Okay. Okay, so we have the stateful widget. We have this button which updates everything, right? So yeah, here's our stateful widget, and here's an integer counter. And whenever I tap on this, a set state is triggered, which updates my count every time. Okay, So, stateful widgets have states, right? So we manage them states, we change their states, and we get the desirable things out of them. All right. So now I will remove all of this. I will create a new application which will be able to fetch data from a real API, like the Jsonholder API which we were using. Okay. So I will import Flutter material package. Okay. 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 So now I will create a new file and I will name it as, just a minute, stateless widget my app. Let's create a new file, homepage.dart. Okay. Let's import material package. Okay. And it will contain our stateful widget. Homepage. And this will contain our scaffold. Our scaffold will have an app bar. And app bar will have a title. Okay. Okay. So let's just leave body as of now. And we will import this. Okay. We will reload the application. Yeah, so we have our basic app with app bar ready right now. Okay. So like, are you guys aware, like when we use an API, we need to actually create a endpoint URL, which we need an endpoint URL for that. Okay. Like we have it here. I'll just copy this and I will come inside my homepage. And I will somewhere keep it here and comment it. Okay. Right. So now, like we created here, we actually created a model class for ourselves. Okay. So I will just go inside my lib folder and I will create another folder called SRC. Okay. I will put my SRC homepage file inside my SRC folder. Okay. Now inside my SRC, I create another folder where I will store my models. Okay. So it's a standard practice, and you are also aware that I'm using this material theme. So it also identifies that it will be containing class models. That's why the icon here turned into red. Okay. Uh, yeah. So inside models, I will create my model, and I will name it model post model. Okay. So we have this API, right? And it has 4 fields. One is user ID, second is ID, title, body. Okay. So I will just type here Okay. So we were here. We have this post model present. And how many types do we have? We have user ID, ID, and title. Okay. Cool. So user ID will come in string format. Let me check. User ID is in integer format. Okay. Then we have ID. Okay. Then we have title. And then we have our body. Okay. Cool. So like every other class, we will create our constructor. Okay. Actually, I wanted to show you annotation which Dart provides. So like when you write something, this dot body, I don't know why it's not working, but Dart actually suggests you to create, like auto create it. Like what we typed it 4 times, Dart actually gives me suggestions when we do that. I'm not sure why it's not working. Anyways, okay, cool. So now we need a like we created a from JSON method here, right? We need it right here as well. So I want you people to know that when you have this JSON, right? So this JSON has a key and a value pair. Okay. So we are pretty sure that the key will always be a string, but we are not sure whether it will be an integer or string in value side, right? On the right hand side, we're not sure about. Okay. So one thing is that we are not sure about the left or right hand side. Second thing is that these objects technically in Dart, we call them maps. Okay. So this thing which we wrote here inside our Dart pad, this parse JSON, it was actually supposed to be of type map. Okay. So if I write it here like uh, map string, and the right hand side I'm not sure about, so I'll just leave it dynamic and then parse JSON. So this will work the same way. Okay. Right now, I cannot see here it was in parse JSON format. It was an object, but as soon as I add this map string dynamic, now I am able to access the methods, the properties, and all those good things I can do with map. I have now APIs enabled for that. Okay. So similarly, I will just entirely copy paste this post model. I'll paste it here. Now I'll just remove them and I'll type user ID. Are you guys holding up? Like, is it fine? If anyone is having some issues. Okay, good, cool. So I'll create a user ID and I will type here parsed JSON. All right. And then I will type here user ID. Okay. Now I'll do it 3 more times. For my ID and for my title and for my body. Okay. So now this is called like I'm getting this is my JSON method, right? So there's one more thing in Dart, an advanced concept. Okay, what you use to copy paste a line. Okay, in VS Code you just go at the end of the line and you press Control C and then again you press Control V, then you get the same line. Okay, make sure you go at the end of the line. Okay, if I like it works even in between as well. Okay, cool. So there's a thing in Dart. It's called factory function. Okay, so what technically a factory function is? Let's say I call this JSON from the internet, and it's being called whenever I'm creating a new instance of post model. Okay, so whenever I create a new instance of this post model, every time a new JSON will be generated, right? But I'm pretty sure that if I'm able to, if I'm, let's say I'm going to create a list of all the posts, right? So I don't want this to be done again and again. I want uh, this thing to be reused again and again. Okay. So what factory function technically does is it allows us to create a to to give out an instance. Okay. It's you can say like whatever the data, whatever the functionalities which we have are being considered for this class, they are being cached. Okay, CACHE caching. You're aware about caching? Okay, so that's what factory function does. So it's very easy to actually add it. Okay, you have to just go right here and type your factory. So now it requires few more things to be done, right? So factory function has to make sure that the constructor we have to remove the instance member constructors. Okay, so I just wanted to let you know about this thing. Okay, and if you want something, let's say you have this constructor and you want user ID, title, and body to always being inputted, then we have required keywords. Okay, required keywords just allow to do like what it says. It allows us to it just makes it necessary that we want these things to be always entered into the class object whenever we are creating it. Okay, cool. Okay, I'll shift down will also work. Okay, so are you guys able to understand like what's going on? Okay, cool. Okay, so I'll go back to my home page. Okay, and this is my window dart. I'll just go inside my home page and close this models. Okay, now I want to do a few things. Okay, so Dart has the Flutter has this package. Okay, it's called HTTP. So HTTP just allows us to fetch something from a remote URL. Okay, so this package we are going to use. So we are going to hit here copy, and we'll go to our pubsec.yaml, and we'll paste this below this Cupertino icons, and we are done. So it's going to run Flutter pub get for me. Now I'll go inside my home page and I'll import this http.dart. Okay, and like in Python, you can import something by an as keyword. So I will type as HTTP. So I'm just typing it for my easy usability. If I want to rename it, let's say I want to rename this to uh, Salman Khan, then it's totally all right. I can do it. Okay. So it's just for my usability, like how I'll be using it. So it's a standard to always import in form of HTTP. So the other developers which are using it can absolutely get like what's happening. Okay. Right. Cool. Now I want to go inside my main, and I actually want to create a method here. Okay. So I'll create a function, and this function will actually fetch my data, like get my data. Okay, Ronak, actually, I will update everything. I will exactly paste this code since we are live coding right now. Okay, you didn't get the factory function. Okay, so what happens, Lailesh, is Dart has this factory function, okay, which returns you an instance of a class. So when you write a keyword factory in front of a constructor function or any method inside class, that particularly should be a constructor function. So now we can just return that instance from that constructor. Okay, so what happens when you are creating and you have a large code base? Okay, so and you have many functions, many widgets, many classes, and absolutely when you are dealing with that much amount of code, you will have a lot of class and lot of instances created. Okay, so factory functions allows us to minimize that creation of instances. Okay, if something is already created and we can directly index it, then it's much better for our memory consumption, or let's say or that time complexity, because every time when we create an instance, a separate memory space is allotted. Okay, so factory function just allows us to cache that particular instance. Okay, so we can reuse it again and again. Yeah, absolutely, like Mridul, absolutely singleton. That's okay. So if you guys have any doubt, just please let me know. Okay. So factory function is a very good concept when it comes to using things. Similarly, we have many Dart advanced concepts, like we have assertions. Okay, assertion checks and verifies the value. Like okay, we have const constructors. Const constructors. If you want to create a class which are which are created while compile time is going on, and you want to create some constant objects, so you can do that. And Dart also has this final keyword, a final keyword and a const keyword. So all these things are done. So when you want something to be created while the application is being compiled, so for that you can use const, and similarly you can use final when your application needs to begin. Before that you need to assign something, then you can use final for that. Okay, we are going to deal with all of these things slowly. And Dart also has a thing called enums, or enums enumerations. Okay, so enumeration, if you don't know the type of object you want to define, and if you want to create something which is not covered by any other data type, then you dealing with an object or a class, and you want to keep it constant with the compile time. You want the properties to be static. Then in that case, you use enumerations or enums. Okay, so every value in enum, it has an index, and you can access it using that index. Okay. Okay, so if you're not getting any of this, it's not an issue, because we'll be unrolling them slowly and slowly as we proceed, right? So it's not an issue. Okay. Anyways, let's go and proceed further. Okay. So now I want to create a method. Okay. So I will name this method as fetch data. Okay. Now inside this fetch data, I want to get the exact JSON response I'm getting from what. So I will get my JSON response from this JSON from this URL, right? From this URL. So I have this URL right here inside my home page. I will just copy this. I will come into my main dart and I'll paste this. Okay. Now I want to get the response which it's returning. So let me just create a response. Okay. Okay. Now I want to actually get the URL here. So HTTP, I want to see how to get that URL actually. Okay. So let me just copy this and paste this here again, since we are dealing with URL again. Okay. So let's just go to HTTP's documentation. Okay. So if you want to get a URL, then you can use uri.parse. Okay. Or uri.https. Okay. So that's how you technically use it. Cool. So I will type here URI. You can see I have this uri.https. Okay. Now we have two things. One is authority and second is unencoded path. Okay. Authority technically tells us what is the domain of that URL. So if I talk about this JSonPlaceholder.typecode.com, so this entire text before this first slash, which means JSonPlaceholder.typecode.com, this is called authority. Okay. And the remaining portion here, this is called uncoded path. Okay. Cool. So let me just keep this line away for an instance and I will paste it here. Okay. So I have URI.https authority encoded path. Okay. Now I want to paste my authority first of all. So I will just copy this and it takes authority in string format and unencoded path in string format. So I'll have to make sure that I use those quotation marks. Okay. So you can use single or double based upon your usage and I will paste it here. And for the uncoded path, I will type here post. Okay, cool. Okay, this is what we want to actually index. Okay, now to get this index, to actually get this data, I will uncomment this and I will type http.get. Okay, now what I want to get, so I will copy this entire thing and I will create a variable URL and I will paste it here. Okay, so now is this clear, like what we are doing? So we first got the URL and we got the URL using HTTP package and we are writing URI. It's just a syntax, okay? So URI.https and we are writing JSON placeholder as our authority and post/1 as our encoded path. Okay. Then we want to get the response and the response we are doing it using http.getURL. As simple as that. Okay. Cool. Now I want this response to arrive to me, but I want to make sure if it has arrived or not. Let's say I hit a particular button to get data from the server, but my internet went away. Okay. And for that thing, I have to write a check. Okay. Whether my API is getting hit particularly in the right way or not. Okay. So to put a check, I'll simply write if else statement, right? I can do that, right? I will write if Now what I want to do is I want to check on response. Okay, so every response you do, or every response you get, or every request you make to a server using an API, so it has a particular status code. Okay, so let me just tell you what status codes are. It's better to open an image, and we also have like 100, 200 means okay, which means the request has succeeded. The meaning of success depends on HTTP method. So if you are using get method, which means your get got successful. If you're using put, post, trace, head, so it just tells us like each of these works fine, then it will give us 200 okay. Okay, cool. Yeah, absolutely. We have them here as well. So 201 lets us know like the resource has been created, and 203 is shown to us when we are trying to methodify something which is not authorized to us. 204 refers to no content, and error 404, it's a very famous, like everybody knows about this error 404. Like recently, Instagram had some issues, so they ran into 500 error recently. So because they had something wrong going inside their servers. So that's what error 500 stand for. Bad request, unauthorized, forbidden, not found, conflict. 502 bad gateway. Likewise. Okay. So what we are concerned, what we are actually worried about is 200. That is okay. Okay. So I will come here and I will type response dot. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Response dot status code. Okay. If it comes out to be 200, all right. And before we do that, what is the issue we are facing? Try importing a library is define status code. Okay. Okay. Try importing libraries. Okay. I think I'm missing. Uh, no, it's not Dart async. I think it's Dart convert. Okay. We have HTTP, right? So okay, got it. So what technically we have to do is we have to make this method as something called future. Okay, so like the name suggests, you use or so you know that methods have different return types. So if you want to show a sum of something, then your method will have a return type as integer. So in this case, we'll deal with a return type called future. Okay, cool. Am I making some sense? And what it will return to us is it will return us post. Okay. Yeah. So future actually means that you have something, you have multiple functions inside your code. Okay. And let's say you want to update something inside your application, but you need something in the future, not as of now, right? So future just gives you that functionality that, yeah, I want this data in the future, maybe in the future. So I will just call it just right now so that I can use and consume it using different methods and classes. Okay. So future has these two methods called async and await. So they actually work like the same thing like JavaScript promises work. Okay. So first we want this thing to get executed, then you want this to happen. So that's what async and await do in case of future. Okay. Yeah, absolutely, Ramveer. So you want one particular method to get executed, and after that you want something to happen. So in that case, you use async await, right? Okay. So since it's telling us to use async await, so I will just simply go over here and write beside this, I will write async. Okay. So I'm getting a post. Okay. Where is my class model? Okay. So my class's name is post model, right? So I will type it here, post model, and I will import this. Cool. So what I want to technically get is I want to get my post. Okay. Am I making sense? Or am I going too fast? Or is it all new to you all? Okay. 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 I understand. I understand. So we are not doing any thing much vital as of now. We are just simply writing lines of code. Okay. And these lines of code actually are not adding up to something logical. We are just setting things right so that you can get and fetch the data in a good and direct manner. So we are just setting up the tools to receive the data offered by the API. Okay, so this is just something you have to keep inside your memory, and you will also be reminded by a regular practice like this has to be done, this has to be done. Okay, so I have this response. So like I said, like I have different keywords. Okay, so I have where I have used where here, and if I want something to happen before this particular injection happens inside to main function, then I can use keywords like final. Or if I want something to run before a different execution, then I can use final anywhere in the code as well. So I can absolutely do this as final. This will also work, and I can use it as final. This will also work. Okay. So final is something you can just over to final. Okay. So we want this to get completed first. So this function will actually return what? It will return to us the post model. You can see as soon as I write post model, I get these predefined things available for me, but I don't want to use that. I want to use post model from JSON. Okay. And now whatever I get from this JSON, now here in this case, I have passed JSON, right? So in my case, I have response. Okay. Are you getting my point? So I will type here response. So go inside my post model. Cool. Now you can see I have not decoded my JSON as of now, like I did into that Dart code, where it is. Yeah, I was decoding, right? But in this case, I have not decoded it anywhere. Okay, so I can simply just come over here and I will type JSON decode. Okay, and then I will just simply type response dot body. Okay, so I don't have body as of now, right? Cool. Now, before we do this, let's let it be response and let it be this. And we know that we wrote async. Now we also want something to wait for us because async and await always work in pairs. So yeah, now you can see I wrote await here. The status code thing also got accepted. Okay, and I can, let's see if I can type body. Okay. As of now, are you guys carrying up? What we are doing right here? So we are getting this blue line. We have this URL, right? And we have this response with us, and response is getting us what we want to get. Okay, I want to write else. Else if there is some kind of error, if some error arises, okay. So this will only get executed when the server is hitting with me 200 status code, and if some error occurs, then it will throw an exception. Okay, so to throw an exception, you simply write throw. Okay, you write exception. Okay, and you can write here failed to get. Okay, is it clear, guys? Okay, cool. Cool. Now, what we need to do is we have our class right here present inside our models. Okay, so this is our class, and we want every field to be required. So required just lets us know like everything has to be required, and we cannot leave everything behind. Okay, so why are we having this issue here? Undefined required is a notation. Try defining a name or importing it from other library. Okay. Can anybody help me with this issue? Like why I'm getting required another library? Anyways, I will going to quick fix this, and I will type foundation. So foundation just gives me this required keyword for me. Okay. Cool. So now everything inside this is required. Okay. So try correcting the status operator, not an issue. Okay. I want this one to be body type. Now this is also working fine. So I'll use Control S. Okay. I will remove all of this. So we are fine as of now. We have no errors. Okay. Okay. Now we will go inside our application, and inside body, okay. Now I want to return a center, and it should have a child. Okay. Okay. So we have something called future builder. Okay. So what data we get inside this function, this particular method which we had here, future. So this particular data can be used to build something. Okay. Now inside Future Builder, you can return any widget. So what data you're getting from the future, and Future Builder will allow you to actually create widgets out of that process data. Okay, cool. Now I will just write here inside my home page. I'll create a child and I will write here Future Builder. Okay, cool. Okay. So where are we? Okay, so future builder needs actually a builder, right? So I will just go over here inside my state class. Okay, and I will type here, let's say future, and what it will actually contain? It will contain post model. Okay, and I will call it future post model. Okay, now I can copy this. I can come down. I can paste this here, and I can cool. Not an issue. We will be done with the error as soon as possible. Okay. So to actually resolve this issue, since we are already creating this model, so we have to assign a state to this. Like since it's a stateful widget, and we know that if you want to update something, then you need to have a state, and a state has something called init state. Okay, init state actually initializes the changes which happen into that particular widget's build context. So we discussed what build context is. So every widget has a build context. Like Flutter has this widget tree, which gets updated when a state is being updated. Okay, so in our case, our homepage widget has a particular build context inside the widget tree, which will get updated as soon as I initialize a state to it. Okay, so initializing a state, it's called init state. Okay, so I will go over here. Okay, am I making sense? All right, cool. Now I will create an init state. So this is the init state. This is how we create init state. And here I have to write everything what I want to do. Okay, cool. So let's just try to mention our future post model as fetch data. Okay. Can't be assigned to parameter type widget function build con, not an issue. Are we okay? Hard to understand for me. Okay, Bhavik, actually what we are doing is first we have a function, okay, and that particular function will get the data for us. So the name of that function, it's written inside here. It's called fetch data, okay, and fetch data has a return type of future post model. So future post model actually allows us to get data irrespective of what we do in the application afterwards. Okay, so let's say you want to create a home. Okay, so for creating that home, you have to make sure that every component should reach on time. Okay, you need bricks, you need cement, you need water, you need masons, you need people who will be working for that. So you need all these four components to be present. Okay, no matter if what happens after they reach or not, but you need these four things to be present and ready to consume. Similarly, this future allows me to actually fetch data, okay, beforehand, like whatever I do in the application, but I am sure inside my mind that yes, I'll be using it in the future. So future is what it means, okay. And post model is the type. So post model is the class which we built, okay. So post model here refers to that particular object to that class, okay. And this is the function fetch data, and we are using async and await. Async and await makes sure that everything works in a manner that everything is available when we reach, okay. So cement will make no sense if you don't have water to mix it with, right? Similarly, so async and await has to be implemented. So you have to make sure that cement is present, only then water will be mixed. Okay. Similarly, you can only work it out if we have the URL. Now we are adding await in front of this URL because URL fetch time is variable. It depends on internet speed. And getting the status from the server also is dependent on the bandwidth speed or internet speed or the device connectivity. So that's why we are awaiting it. Okay, we are awaiting that response, and right after that, if we get the response equal to 200, that is okay. So it will show, it will tell us, yeah, everything is fine. So when it's done, then we are filling our post model response with the JSON body. Okay. So what we are doing is we are filling our post model object with the response we are getting from the JSON object. Okay. And if there is some kind of error, then we'll be writing it up like we failed to get it. Okay. So this is what this fetch is doing. And we have this URL, and this URL is being fed to this http.get, and we get the response. And the response is, if it's fetched correctly, then we'll get 200, and we'll return and we'll fill our class data with the JSON data fetched from the internet. Okay. Then I come inside my homepage. My homepage is present here, and I come inside my homepage. I then have a scaffold. I have a app bar. Then I have a center. In center, I have future builder. Now, what we actually got from that future, now we want to consume it in form of representable widgets. Okay, in form of UI elements. So for that, we are returning that entire data using this future builder. Okay, and the builder for us is future post model. So future post model is present here. Okay, cool. Now we created an init state for this. Okay, init state allows us to actually initialize its state. As simple as that. So if something gets updated, or I am like in counter application, you were updating count by 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, right? So that plus 1 thing was written inside this init state. Okay. So init state, set state, that's how we work hand in hand. Okay. Momik, now is it making somewhat sense? You don't need to understand it fully. Even if you are able to understand bits and pieces, then it's fine for you to go with. Is it fine? Okay. So this future builder will have post model. Okay. Cool. And this future, actually, the future here will be future post model. Okay. Now I will be building something. So for this, I need a builder. Okay. So builder actually builds from a context and a snapshot. Okay, so we will understand what context and snapshot is. Snapshot is. Okay. All right. So now, if snapshot. So snapshot technically is the basic. What to say? It's the basic understanding. Like I have got this data, and I call this data entirely as a data snapshot. Okay. So let's say. mm this JSON object which I get, the JSON data which I get, you can call it a snapshot of the data, right? So snapshot is actually what I get, okay, after the response is being fetched. So snapshot is actually what I get, okay. So snapshot, if my snapshot has data, then I want to return something. I want to give out something. So I will write if snapshot dot has data, okay, then what I want to do is I want to return a text widget, okay, and the text widget will be snapshot dot snapshot dot data dot title. Okay, and if I am not able to get the data, then I will pose an error. Okay, so now I will return here again a text widget, but with some error code shown. Okay, so if text data I will add if statement. So I'm using an else if statement so that I can get the error. So I will write snapshot dot has error. Then I will type what? I will type $, and I will type here these two curly braces like we discussed yesterday for string interpolation. Okay, I will type error occurred. Okay, and I will close this. Okay, am I clear? Is it fine? And I can write here like if nothing is working out, let's say uh, data is being fetched, then I can show here what I can return a circular progress indicator. Circular progress indicator. Okay, so what is snapshot? Snapshot is what I get technically into my data pool. Okay, so if my snapshot has data, then I will print what snapshot or data dot title. I can also print user ID. I can print body. So like we created this in our class, right? I created user ID, I created ID, I created title, body. So right now I'm fetching just title. You can fetch user ID as well, ID as well, body as well. So I will go here, I'll type data dot body. Okay, cool. Now you can see a circular progress indicator is being shown. Okay, I'll just reload this application by breaking it. Okay, so you can see now the data has finally come from the API which we were indexing. Okay, if I go to that API which I showed you at the starting, okay, which was here, I will copy this, I will paste it in new tab, and yeah, you can see this is the exact data I'm getting. This QUA lorem ipsum kind of data. Okay, you can see here QUAET, right? I think it's visible or not. Right, so this is the exact data being fetched from this API, right? So we have finally done this. Now I will again explain everything from the starting like you don't know anything. Okay, I will explain everything from the scratch because it's very important that you guys are here for like 1.5 hours. So it's very important that you bag something with yourself which is going to be useful. Okay, cool. So this is google.com. Okay, and everything in this world works on APIs, right? You create microservices, you create multiple softwares, create applications. Each of these application, each of these microservices, each of these containers, images, or any other cloud function in this world, or any Sheets API which we use every day, they all work on APIs. Okay, so what is an API? An API stands for Application Program Interface. So it acts as an interface between your application and the server. Okay, or somewhere in the chain where you have stored your data. So that's what an API is. Okay. So we have this famous website called Json Placeholder, which allows developers all over the world to test their APIs or to test their service, whether it's working fine or not. Okay. So it's a fake REST API. So we go over to this website, we go to guide, and we get different methods, different ways to get actually data. So if I want to get a data, then I can use this in case of JavaScript, and that's what I will get. If I want to list all the resources, then I will use this. Likewise, okay. So I technically went into this by getting. I want to get a resource, right? So I will just copy this URL. I'll open it in a new tab. I'll paste it, paste, and go. So this is what I get. So this is now online. Okay. I want it to be shown inside my application. Okay. So what is the application? An application can be anything: a web application, a desktop app, a mobile app, an iOS app, any app. Okay. So I have created an app. Okay. And for that application creation, I'm using a framework called Flutter. Okay. And that's what we are learning. So Flutter is a mobile app framework which allows us to create applications for different platforms. Okay, and Flutter uses a language called Dart. Okay, so this is a website where you can experiment with Dart. Okay, so Dart has multiple data types. Dart has classes. Dart is an object-oriented based language. All right. So now I know I have created an application. Step one. Second step, I know what that application, like how, with which technology I created an application. So the technology was Flutter. Third thing, the language used was Dart. Okay, now I know these three things, right? So now now my one and only objective is to get this data from the internet. Okay, so for that, I opened up my Dart pad. I created a fake JSON response, and stored it in a variable. Okay, and I wanted to access this in a skillful manner. I don't want to write these multiple lines. Okay, so for that I use something called class. So a class is like a blueprint of something, and you can replicate it millions of times. Okay, by creating instances. All right. So that's what a class is. So a class has properties and it has constructor functions and it has methods. So there are three things. Okay, First is properties. So these two things are properties. Okay. Then we have a constructor functions. This is a constructor function, and this is a constructor function with a particular method that is from JSON. Okay. So we have three things. All right. So now what's happening? The JSON response which you get, which is here, it is a key value pair thing. Okay. So key value pair thing means it has a key and it has a value. It has a key ID and it has a value one. It has a key title and it has a value this string. Okay. So these key value pairs are of multiple types. Okay. Pairs are of multiple types. Okay. So this is a string type and this is an integer type. This is a string type and this is a string type. So you can see the right hand side keeps on changing. So we can call it a dynamic type in Dart. Okay. So that's why I wrote map type left side is of string and right side is of dynamic. Okay. So this is why I wrote it like that. Am I making myself clear? Okay. So the key is of string type and the dynamic is means the right hand side which I get in this API that sometimes I'm getting integer, sometimes I'm getting string. So that's why I quoted it as a dynamic type. All right. So what was happening here was that I was converting this from a string and I was losing the type of it, right? So to tackle that issue, I mentioned types explicitly here. Okay, I mentioned like it's a string type, I mentioned it's an integer type. So this technically solves my problem. Okay, now we come to the framework side. Now we come inside our Dart code for the Flutter application. So this thing right here, it's called an emulator. Emulator actually allows me to run my Flutter applications. And yeah, cool. So Flutter has a file called main.dart inside which you have a main function. Okay, and main function takes in a class my app, and my app is referring to a home widget which is homepage. Okay, I will control and click on this home page, then I will be sent inside this home underscore page.dart. Okay, so this is my lib folder. This is my src. Src means all the source files are here, and my main.dart. So I keep main.dart file outside of the source file because main.dart is an injection place where the injection of the code happens and the compiler understands. Okay, so that's why main.dart stays outside. It's a convention to follow. Okay, now I have created home underscore page.dart. Okay, and this is the entire code of it. Before I go inside this code, I want to let you know that I created a model. So a model is like a in model you write a class. Okay, and from this you create multiple other objects or instances. All right, so I created my class here. I added all the properties. I added a constructor and I want all the things to be required. That means these all things needs to be mandatory. And I'm pretty sure that the API will always return these four things. That's why I'm adding required here. Okay. Now I am just assigning my class, which is inside my code, with the JSON, which I'm getting from the internet. Okay. So you can imagine it like this. Uh, Sunlight. Okay, some people use sunlight to generate solar energy. Some people use sunlight to cure diseases in their skin. Okay, some people use sunlight to evaporate water to get the salt out of it, like in salt fields it happens. Okay, so what technically happens here is they all have different models. Okay, and they consume those different models in different ways. Okay, so some want their model to be solar energy based, some want their model to be uh, salt evaporation field kind of thing, and some want to use sunlight for the plants. So likewise, so my model, I just want all these things from this API to arrive in my class class a class object. Okay, in my post model. So I'm getting this data from JSON and I'm storing it inside my class model. So I'm easily able to access it instantly. Okay, so I hope I make myself clear. Okay, now I want to go inside my home page. So inside my home page, I have these all things written. Okay, so before I go into home page, I want to let you understand like what HTTP package is. HTTP package is a package which allows you to play with HTTP URLs. Okay, and HTTP URLs are what you see all over the internet. Every URL you are linked with, they have an HTTP or an HTTPS flag in front of it. Okay, so I created a future function. So whenever you see these two things, these three things actually, this name, these two round brackets, and one curly braces, one curly brace. Okay, so this means it's a function, it's a method. If it's written inside a class, it's a method. If it's written outside, it's a function. It's just a notion to follow. Okay, now this is of type future and return and of post model. So every function has a return type, and in this case we have a return type as future. So what future is? Future technically allows us to get something done previously before we move further. Okay, getting my point? मतलब मुझे अभी डेटा चाहिए, मैंने करके रख लिया है, बाद में मैं इसे फ्यूचर में यूज करूंगा. ठीक है, that's how it works. Okay, so it has two keywords, async and await. Async await actually just they always come in pairs, so you cannot use async singly or await singly. It totally depends upon the use case. So async allows us to to index this function that yes we are using, and await here, await keyword I have used. So async is here, await is here. Await will wait for this entire thing to get completed, and then rest of the thing will get executed. So if this thing is not getting completed, I will never come to this part. Okay, or I'll be able to throw the exception if I don't get this. Okay, so I won't get status code if this does not get executed. Okay, or else it will show an exception or some different kind of issue with that. Okay, so this is what we are doing. We have a URL and we have a response, and if the response is returning us 200, then we will populate our data with that response, or we will show an error. As simple as that. Okay, now I will come inside my main function. Every Dart program has a main function, and inside this main function we have my app, and my app has a home page. So I'll go inside my home page. Inside my home page, I have a future post model. So this technically is the future. I want to actually use that entire class model. So if I'll be having a model, then I can assign this future model to the snapshot which I was using. Okay. So I come to my future builder part here. This is my future builder. So my future builder takes in consumes post model. And what's the future it's using? It's using future post model, which I defined up. Okay. Now with this, I'm building something, and every widget in Flutter has a build context. Okay, so in this case, the context is with respect to the future builder and the parent of it, which is center. Okay, cool. And another thing is being passed. It's called snapshot. So what I'm getting from this post model, the exact data which I'm getting from this post model, I'm using and consuming it in form of a snapshot. It's called a data snapshot. Okay, and if my snapshot has the data present, like if my post model has the data present just in case something bad happens, so that's why I have put this check. Okay, let's say Json placeholders server went down. Okay, then what kind of error should be shown. Okay, for that purpose I'm keeping a check on this. So if my snapshot has data, then I will show snapshot of data.body. Now this body is actually the property of the post model class which we created. Okay, if I want to return an ID, I will return an ID or user ID, let's say. Okay. Okay, now you can see the error is showing the argument type int can't be assigned to the parameter type string because it's a text. Okay, so if I just put here toString, then it will work fine, right? I will press Ctrl S, and now you can see one is visible here. Okay, cool. So that's how it works. So now my snapshot, and I'm from my snapshot, I'm getting my data, and from the data, I want to show user ID into this text widget, and that user ID is of type integer. You can see now the I'm able to easily access the types as well, data type as well. So I'm converting this type again to string. And if any error occurs in this world, then this text will show me the error. Okay. And if none of this is happening, which means the data is being loaded. So for loading the data, I'll show circular progress indicator and the program gets completed. So that's how it works. That's how you get the data from internet. Now we today learned how to get data from HTTP API, right? From an API. Now I told you on the first day itself that we are going to create a TV series or a movie application. Okay. So for that we'll be using this API called TV Amaze. So TV Amaze gives us the API for absolutely every movie and TV series on this planet. Okay. So let's say I want to know about the Big Bang Theory. Okay. So the Big Bang Theory, all the data is present. Okay. I will get the full cast. I will get episodes and like everything about this is absolutely visible. I'll get the gallery, so I can fetch even the images. I can get the news articles if any new news article gets published. Okay. I will. And this is the main profile. Okay. And this was the last episode of this TV show. After that, it just ended. Okay. And you can also get the trailers. So everything is possible, right? Okay. Yeah. So now every API has a particular documentation. So this is exactly the API documentation of TV Amaze. So let's say I want to get, let's say, uh, let's say I want to get some seasons. Okay. So if I'll go here, I'll get the season, all the data about different. Okay. So I want to get the cast. So I'll just index this URL upfront. So I'll get the cast of that. Okay. So for that, first I'll have to I also get the images. So I'll get the image for that. So this is the API we'll be using for creating that TV series or movie application. This API gives us absolutely everything from images to trailers to news articles to cast to name to summary to episode count to episode type and genre which it supports. So everything is easily doable. So yeah, so if you were able to do this, then the process for fetching any API in this world is extremely identical. So you'll be able to do that as well. JSON placeholder, I use JSON placeholder because it has much lesser documentation and it's very easy to to start with something which is less clutter. Okay, so that's why I went with JSON placeholder. Every starter goes with JSON placeholder. So yeah, if you guys did not understand even a single most thing today, it's totally all right. Okay, it's totally perfect. I believe today you heard things, and hearing is also a very important concept. Next time you will do something, you will create something, you will be able to listen my voice, like what I said for this particular thing. Okay, and if you are able to recall that, then trust me, this entire attending this session was 100% successful. You did not waste even a single more second. If you're not able to do it, it's not an issue. If you listened it throughout, then you were perfectly fine. I think we need to practice more. When we repeat writing the code again and again, it stores to our subconscious mind. Then we don't need to remind that actually comes to conscious and new ideas generate. So need to give time, energy. Am I right? Yes, absolutely. Varun is perfectly right in this case. People who are good at things, they have a particular muscle memory introduced to their bodies. Okay, so muscle memory is something which comes out when you try and do something in a repeated manner, in a consistent manner. So like I have the muscle memory that I can, I can simply switch these tabs instantly. So this muscle memory comes out when you do things, when you write things. Okay, like some people, they have such better muscle memory that they are able to do things so much faster than anyone else. It's because they spend a lot of time to do that, right? Anyways, can we do Flutter development with Android Studio instead or VS Code? Yeah, Dharam, you are absolutely open to choices. You can choose anything. Okay. I personally don't like to fire up the big Android because the thing is, Android Studio takes a lot of volatile RAM, like volatile memory when you run it up. And my fans just start spinning up for no reason. So that's why I don't prefer opening Android Studio. But absolutely, people have been doing like they have been creating millions of applications using Android Studio. So you can go with that, not an issue. Also, like it also has a very good array of plugins. Okay. VS Code actually is intuitive to me. I have been using it for different languages, whether it was C, C++, JavaScript. So Visual Studio has this familiar touch to myself that I know from there I can do this, from here I can do this. So it has this, touch to which allows it again. It has muscle memory associated with myself. So yeah. Uh, okay. So any more questions? Any more queries? Bhaumik, are you able to get things now? Bhaumik, are you there? Okay, I think Bhaumik left. Okay, not an issue, guys. What we did today is very elementary, and if you did not get any of this, it's not an issue. Okay, cool. Can we use yeah, feedback form is here. Can we use retrofit library to get and post data? Yeah, actually, I think there is a package for this. Yeah, here's a Dart package. So yeah, you can use it. It uses another plugin called Do. So Do is a very good plugin. It allows you to do a lot of things, and it has been developed by Flutter China. Okay. So Do is a plugin. It allows you it's a HTTP client library for Dart, which supports interceptors, global configuration, form data, request cancellation, file downloading. Okay, so it's a very good package, and it's totally like a Swiss Army knife, which allows you to do a lot of things. Okay, you can absolutely try this out. Global configuration, it supports interceptors. Okay, while downloading, like if there's a timeout between your request, then it can also sustain that. And if you want to focus on file downloading, you want to show the exact percentage, you want to show what's going wrong, you want to do form data or multi-part request, then you can do that. Okay, so currently what happens when we are sending images to a server, we have multiple ways to do that. So right now we convert that image into base64 string, and then we send it. Okay, so we first encode it, and when we want to fetch it, we then decode it. Okay, so this is one way, and second way is to send image as a file. Okay, so for that part you can go with form data. Form data can send your data in two formats. One is the string, and second is the file. Now that file can be anything. It's a doc file, PDF file, image file, video file, right? So people use form data all the time when they want to, let's say, okay, there are these services online which allows you to convert things. Okay, so let's say you want to send something. video to not YouTube video to MP3 technically, because YouTube video to MP3 will take your URL and then will encode that URL into their particular server instance and then download it and then send it to you in multiple formats. I'm talking about something like you are entering the detail of a video and you want that video to be converted into MKV, MP4. Okay, and you also want to send some metadata with that. In that case, you can use this. Like when you submit your college assignment. So what happens? Google Form, you submit it via Google Form. You choose a file, and that file is being sent. So technically, that's why we get the name form data or multi-part data. Okay, if you have worked with Node.js, you might be aware about something called a multer library, MULTER. Uh, yeah, this multer package. It is a very famous package. Okay, which allows you to just do that to do multi-part form data. And yeah, there's another framework library called Busy Boy, okay, which does the same thing. But recently, what happened? Like I was using it in a production product, and the support with Cloud Function is not enabled anymore because Firebase has removed, Google Cloud has removed any middleware to be taken in use. So Busy Boy is a good alternative if you want to go this. Okay, so data is sent in form of streams. Like there are different ways to get and send data. Okay, are you guys aware about the Mime type? Yeah, so like in the start of the class, we saw content type application JSON. Okay, so the Mime type is a label which is used to identify inside the header of an API or a request. It is used to software can know how to handle this kind of data. Okay, it serves the same purpose on the internet as files. So what happens is, let's say you are working in a company which is creating COVID-19 vaccines. Okay, and the data which you are sharing, it cannot be shared in normal txt or pdf files because the data is very very sensitive. Okay, so what that company will do, that vaccine company will do, they will create their own encoded file format. Okay, one such example of that is a parquet file. So a parquet file is a file format which is available to anyone in the Hadoop. Hadoop is an ecosystem which allows you to deal with a lot of things when it comes to big data. When you're dealing with big data, you have Hadoop file system available for you, which allows you to, do things in a very performant manner. So it has this flat column storage kind of thing, which allows you to do a lot of things. So similarly, if you're working in a COVID-19 company which is generating vaccines for people, then you can make your own profile, or you can make your own extension, which allows you to do the needful things. And if you want to communicate, then you can mention your MIME type. Let's say, in case of this, MIME type was application JSON. For your company, it may be a Parquet file or any other file like that. So whatever file format you are using, make sure the server side instances, that server side computers, are able to process that. So yeah, that's how it works. Anyways, I hope you were able to gather some knowledge today